So as Vic mentioned, my talk is called Terminal Cornucopia. My name is Evan Booth. I go by what? How was that? Is it better? Okay, I'll talk loud. If y'all need to get a hold of me, this is how. I'm on the Twitter and all that stuff. EvanBooth.EvanBooth. Okay. And boy, do I love me some America. Just remember that in these moments. This research started, I guess, a couple of years ago. Well, before that, I suppose, if you want to start from the very beginning. As growing up, and I guess by growing up, I mean from like the time I was born until like just now. I would be in like Lowe's or Home Depot or like at the fabric store with my mom, and I would look around and think, if I had to defend this place from like zombies or whatever, like what would I do? Like what would I like take the stuff? How would I defend it? Where would be my my various attacks, things like that? So really, like that's kind of been a mindset of mine since I was born and I love America. So this research specifically started, I guess, 2 years ago. I was coming back from Vegas after DEF CON with Melvin and Beeper over there. And I was just thinking, like, man, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here in this airport. I could probably make weapons out of this stuff. I mean, I'm just thinking. So a couple of years later, and a lot of airports later, I am here with you now. So my thesis was simple. It's items that are readily available for purchase in an airport terminal can be used to build potentially dangerous weapons. So how did I go about proving this thesis? All right, so for one, we want to define a clear scope. And I am not a big fan of limiting scope because it doesn't really mimic a real world threat generally. But when you think about something like an airport, you can't really look at like, well, what can I get in? That becomes a completely different question. The much more difficult question, of course, is okay, well, I'm in here now. What can I do with the stuff in hand? So I wanted to use only materials that can be sourced inside an airport terminal after the security screening. And I did say I could walk in with a travel-approved multi-tool, which is this guy. And it's not very big, but you could do a lot with it. It's pretty nice. Okay. So, yes. So what was out of scope? What am I not going to talk about with you today here? We're not going to look at the psychology of hostile takeovers. Mostly because, like, with the human element, like, you could have someone with limited resources, but, above average intelligence and still be very effective. We're really just going to look at the stuff that you can have at your disposal. We're not going to look at smuggling in prohibited items because that's a completely different question. And I mean, if you can get things in, then I mean, that makes the question of what you can build irrelevant. So we're not going to consider found objects. Now, what do I mean by found objects? Have you guys seen these around in an airport? I'm pretty sure these are honey pots because they leave them around. And like in my mind, I'm seeing a screen with a bunch of sweaty guys standing around it like, grab the Comet, grab the spray bottle. Come on, take it. You want to. But, I mean, seriously, there's a lot of interesting things here. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Comet, which is a derivative of something really nasty. You got trash bags and other things like that. So there's some grape drink. There's a black bag for black bagging yourself. Once you take the grape drink, here's lemonade. I was actually hoping one of you could tell me what that is, because I have no. I sung into the little thing and nothing happened. I don't have any drinks for you, sir, but thank you. Okay, this is a human neck-sized vice grip. And it comes with a chain built in. So there's that. There's the Born Legacy. Those are handy. Now, okay, so you got to think this is an airport and there's people watching things. If you took that, someone would notice, right? They would be like, oh crap, there's a giant red thing missing. But every single store in that place has got one of these stuck behind the counter, and a lot of people don't pay attention to that sort of thing. And I love America. Defibrillators, these things. Now, if you were to open this door, an alarm would go off and people would come out in suits. But if you sit around long enough, and I have sat around long enough, occasionally they'll roll by these medical carts, right, like with the stretcher and all that stuff. It's their little mobile unit. And they've got these kind of loosely on the back where people aren't walking, so you could probably snag one, hypothetically. Okay, what else? We're not going to talk about aircraft vulnerabilities, like if you flush the toilet twice while whistling Dixie, then like a cruise ship will just stop somewhere, and like Christmas is canceled. Good job. We're not going to talk about the effectiveness of specific government agencies. Because honestly, that's the kind of thing that kills my inner child. And my inner child wants to build weapons. Okay, so if we're going to make weapons, we kind of have to know generally what we're going to do with them. And I say basic because these are really basic. So what are basic attack vectors on an airplane? Okay, so you want to injure people, sometimes to death. So there's that. Cause panic, and I don't just mean like, for the heck of it. Like people do this in reality, and they're called probing. They're trying to see what people are going to do, right? If they do things that are just weird, Like I think of some band of musicians from a foreign country, some sort. They were on an airplane, and like as soon as that fasten seatbelt sign turned off, they all stood up and started walking. It was like, oh, I'm walking. And they did that for like a half hour. And so people started freaking out. I mean, if you could only imagine. So they did that just to see like what people would do. And they spent like hours in the bathroom. Anyways. So something else you might want to do is identify and disarm the marshal. That's not funny. What's that? Yeah, that guy. Okay, so these last two are kind of the holy grail. So most people are trying to either get in the cockpit or they are trying to damage the aircraft to death sometimes. So, but those two are really tough, right? Because post 9/11, they put a lot of fail-safes in place. Okay, so if I'm going to make weapons out of stuff, right? I wanted to do a little research into makeshift weaponry. So I started looking around, and necessity is invention's mom. And so I looked into prison, right? So like that's one place where you have limited resources and you still want to hurt people. So an attacker wants to hurt people, not you guys. This is actually a shotgun that was made in prison out of bed rails, and they used ground up match heads and bits of tin. And this was actually used in a successful escape, and it was fired during the event, and they shot it like bulletproof glass just to show that they were messing around. But it was interesting. They drew a current across a filament from a light bulb, and that actually ignited the gunpowder, the match heads, quote unquote. This is a knuckle duster. It's made from looks like a hacksaw blade and some padding. That's a mace. That reminds me of Lord of the Rings, right? Okay. So they confiscated this before it was used, but it could either be used as a weapon, obviously, but also to pry up the concertina wire. This is a double-barreled pistol, and it's pretty sexy, right? You don't have to agree. It also used match heads, ground-up match heads and tin. So I don't actually know how they were going to light that off. Maybe just a little hole in the top. This isn't a weapon. This is a hash pipe. But I thought it was interesting, and some people are lovers, not fighters. Here's a whip with a countersink on the end and a bunch of razor blades. That looks like fun. That's a crucifix shiv, which looks more like a prop from a movie. But speaking of shivs, right, that's like 98% of prison stuff. So these were the notable exceptions, and this was a pretty cool one. So when you talk about shivs, like there's a basic math formula. I've worked this out. So you take anything harder than skin, and you raise that to a point, and you add dookie, and you got a shiv. So it's not terribly interesting, but I'm still waiting to hear back from the Nobel Peace Prize Committee for this formula. Oh. We'll see what happens. So I looked into Fallout, the post-apocalyptic world of Fallout, because they have a lot of makeshift weaponry in there, and I just really like that game. So I looked at this guy. This guy. He's carrying a missile. I would have loved to have been on that photo shoot. Give him a missile. I looked at these guys. They've done their fair share of weaponry over the years. So hats off to them. I looked into this. Anyone read this? It's got a very nice structure to it. They talk a lot about the fundamentals. So what have other people done, like real world attacks? So you've got the shoe bomb, right? You heard about this? Guy packed his shoe full of, yes? Hey, oh, hey. Hey. Yeah, shoe bomb. So I think he used PTP, and he used a traditional fuse, and in the process of trying to light the fuse, he got curb stomped or something. So this is pretty clever, right? I guess this is why you take your shoes off now. So this guy, he decided that having the explosive, it wasn't quite close enough to his crotch, so he put it in his underwear. And he also failed. And I think the trouble with these things is it's tough to ignite them. So this guy, he was caught as well. And they cut up his underwear. And it looks like a bird now. All right, so what makes a weapon? Like, let's talk about just the fundamental bits, because if you're going to make weapons, you kind of need to know what makes them work. So let's look at melee first. What are the components of melee? You want something with good weight, good balance. Length is definitely a plus, because you don't have to get up in someone's grill. Durability is wonderful. If it's got an edge to it, that's bonus points, right? Because you can cut folks. So examples of this would be like a club, staff, a nail board, a mace, some chucks, sword, axe, dagger, the common stuff. The pros to melee weapons. They're simple to build and they're fast. They're a lot less likely to fail because they're a lot less complicated. No, that's actually a con. Ignore that one. There's no reload times. So the cons. I'm going to do that every time. So you must be in close proximity to your target, right? It's kind of a given. Effective blunt melee weapons, they tend to be bigger. And it's really harder to attack with the element of surprise. So, you tend to notice the guy in the airplane with a giant bat walking towards you. And if you don't, you probably shouldn't work there. So what about ranged weapons? So what we need is some kind of energy source, right? So that could be like a contraction of your muscle if you're throwing a spear. Could be expansion of gases. Could be like a spring or elastic. So like think a bow and arrow. Could use gravitational, plus like a fulcrum lever. Think like a trebuchet. Could use electricity. So what you need is a channel for the projectile, so you could aim somewhat. You'll shoot yourself. A projectile, and something to trigger this. So examples would be like a spear, a sling, a slingshot, or a sling bow, a blowgun, bow and arrow, or a crossbow, something like a trebuchet or a catapult, or like a railgun, which you totally can't build in an airport. Not yet. Pros, subtlety, right? So the attacks require less overall motion. You could probably be in your seat still and get off an attack without someone knowing. These are better for crowd control, I think, because people they fear the next shot, right? And also at range. Guns. They typically need more parts. They're a lot more difficult to construct. They're a lot more time-consuming to build, and potentially more difficult to conceal. So what about flexibles? Flexibles. So you need links of strong, durable material, and the bonus points for spikes or sharp elements. So just think like a traditional graduated braid bullwhip or cat of nine tails. So these things have improved reach over melee weapons. They are terrifying. The cons are it's nearly impossible to use on an airplane. And you're going to get it tangled up and get curb stomped, and you're not Indiana Jones. These are all big problems. So explosives. Components of an explosive. You need some kind of reaction that causes very rapid and energetic expansion, right? And then in some cases, you need a container that would rather not have its rapidly contracting materials leave the container. You also need some kind of fuse or catalyst. So like an expansion from a chemical reaction would be like a Drano bomb, something like that. Something that just grows outside of the size of its container and causes an explosion. So otherwise you might have like a high explosive that just explodes because it burns so freaking quickly. Pros are pretty obvious, right? I mean, it's a bomb. So it could be used as a diversion if it's smaller, and this is damage on a grand scale typically. The cons are the materials are extremely difficult to synthesize or source. If you do manage to find one, I'd say it'd be pretty difficult to ignite, just based on history there. Less flammable materials, which some are available, require a lot more oxygen to really burn, so that's an issue. Some other things are electricity. So think like a taser, like nerve agents and stuff like that, man, humans kind of suck. What about diversions or fear agents? So like in prison, people would often make fake weapons, so they can stage an attack. Any kind of smoke or gas, harmful or otherwise on a plane, that's bad news. Also fire. I thought about poison because, like, I don't know, they serve drinks and things like that. So also body armor. So what's next? Let's identify the materials that are available. So to do this, I went shopping. So I hit LaGuardia, JFK, Ronald Reagan National, RDU, right around the corner, Charlotte Douglas International, I love America. And so in the process of doing this, I noticed there are tons and tons of stores. Thank you. Man, you are on it. There are tons and tons of stores, but like if you distill it down, there's only just a couple types, right? So you've got like overpriced convenience store with tchotchkes. And so in here you might find lots of stuff. Gum, drinks, plastic, chocolate, candy, over-the-counter medication. You can get some baby powder, sanitizer, wipes, Axe body spray, disposable razors, dental floss, condoms, safety pins, cigarette lighters, magazines, a bunch of stuff, right? Some power adapters, some electronics things here and there. The souvenirs are interesting because you can get little die-cast toy airplanes, things like that. And you can buy luggage and some keychains. You got duty-free, which is kind of your overpriced fragrances, makeup and booze category. You get confections here, leather goods, handbags, yeah, seriously, spray stuff that smells good. Sunglasses, you get your wine and your whiskey, cosmetics, jewelry, watches, and tobacco. You got overpriced electronics. And I hope you guys are noticing a trend here. Here you'll find lots of headphones, some external USB batteries, more headphones, phone cases, laptop bags, portable speakers, iDevice docks, small electronics like e-readers, audio players. You'll find cameras, Bluetooth headsets. I feel like this list is really long. Portable gaming consoles and wearable cameras and alarm clocks. So overpriced gadgets at Brookstone. You've got luggage, sound machine, personal massagers, e-readers, USB batteries, wireless charging mats, RC helicopters and those quadcopter things, which is pretty neat. RC video surveillance cars, pocket projectors, Dream electronics, things like a nose hair trimmer. And do use your imagination of like the parts that go into these things as I'm saying them. Phone cases, DC power inverters, alarm clocks, travel accessories, headphones, hickeys, which are elastic shoelaces, travel pillows, hair dryer, and a steam iron. Okay. Oh.
Hannah Montana.
Yes. I'm just going to agree. Gotcha. It all makes sense now. Okay, so you can also get your nails done and get a massage. So here, like, you get nail polish, some beauty supplies, maybe some cotton, and you get your nails did. Overpriced designer stuff. Wristwatches, pocket watches, jewelry, handbags, belts, miscellaneous leather goods, clothes, and umbrellas. We're almost through this. Overpriced sports stuff. So like you might find athletic attire, belts, golf balls, many novelty helmets, mini basketballs, and sports. So this was the really interesting one. And this really varies depending on your location, obviously, because this is your overpriced regional goods. And this is where I found the most stuff, and I love America. So like the Smithsonian Museum store. There's too much stuff to list here, but like I found these giant crystal pointy things. Had some heft to them. Oh, and rocks, giant rocks.
Yes.
Like Frisbee, Hannah Montana. Frisbee-sized rocks. This thing, which that's a hat for a very sad man. You find some overpriced food. So like you could get metal silverware here, glass, sustenance, aluminum foil, coffee stirs, hot beverages, and hot sauce. So here's Mecca, Cinnabon. This is where you go for delicious cinnamon treats. What did I find? Okay, so the following list are all things that I didn't use in builds. So this is certainly not exhaustive, but things that were interesting to me would be like a die-cast airplane, right? Thinking that you might be able to file that down and it'd be terrifying. Axe body spray, baby powder. Unfortunately, this is not the cornstarch-based baby powder that's flammable. Flammable baby powder. This is the talc-based stuff. I was disappointed too. Bubble gum, Diet Coke, and Mentos. Disposable cameras, disposable razors. Some of these, that's an external USB battery. This is an 1.5" diameter glass sphere. I've actually got this right here. I'm gonna throw this to you. Pass that around. I'm watching you. I'm so sorry. That just happened. So they had a whole bin full of those, and they're basically really hard, heavy things. Hair thingies, Lysol spray, metal shot glasses, safety pins, steam iron. All right, so what was next, right? I'm gonna build some stuff. So before I get into the builds, I want you guys to keep in mind that like all of these are like first draft. These are like Mark 0.1 weapons, right? So this is me sitting down thinking like, I'd like to build this, and then trying pretty much one time and getting it. So that said, like the effectiveness of these particular weapons is at a certain level, but like all of these can be scaled up very, very easily using just more things, basically, more of the same things. And overall, I would say I've probably looked at maybe 20% of the stuff that I've got in my mind right now. So, what about a workspace? Where are you going to do this stuff? Well, the family bathrooms are nice. They've got locks. They've got cover noise, power, water, tiny bacon dispenser. You got a workbench, which is nice. What else? Oh, let's get into the builds. Okay, so for build number 1, I took a double-walled tumbler. Oh, quick caveat. So these are the exact things that I used, right? But this stuff can be swapped out for whatever you happen to have on hand. So double-walled tumbler, an AR drone, which I didn't buy because they're like $400, but I used a different one. Zippo lighters, and what does that get you? That gets you an adorable blowgun, right? And so we've got a little rod that's sharpened to a point, and a bit of cotton from the inside of a Zippo, and you're blowing that through a couple tumbler straws. And really, this is adorable. So the only reason I included this is like in testing, like this would go through someone's neck pretty easily, pretty far. So like, I don't know if you'd want to really do much with this or attack her. Right. So I want to test it now. Oh, there's no audio. It is in. It's definitely in. Okay, let's see that again. Yeah, so that happened. All right, yeah. So build number 2, and that I think you'd scale up naturally by just making the parts bigger and the stuff heavier, and having a good set of lungs helps too. So I played trumpet for a long time. So build number 2, I took magazines, not those specific. Okay, and I read them too. Lady Liberty fridge magnets that are very pointy, braided leather belts, and I actually ended up unraveling these and using that as cording. Scotch tape. And what does that get you? That gets you the Chucks of Liberty. So, all right. So I rolled up these magazines, and I used scotch tape, a lot of scotch tape to get those things as tight as possible. I ran a couple strands of leather in this leather through the middle, and I obviously used the rest of it to lash on all the ladies. It's not, that's not at all gnarly. What's happening right now? All right, so here we go. Oh! No. Okay. Did anyone see what went wrong? We need an engineer. Okay. I really wish I could do a backflip, because I totally would have done that clip from like the internet like 1,000 years ago where the guy had chucks and he did a backflip and landed on his face. And like the best part is that he's still trying to go with it. He was following. Look it up. Okay. Okay, so if first you don't succeed, swap out the melon for a much harder target like a coconut, which is arguably more tough than a human skull, but smaller, so it's kind of weird. And the issue there was I didn't use real leather belts, because I bought like 10 of them, and they're expensive. So I use like the fake stuff. It's like just a little tougher than lamb stool. So round 2, I used a lot of strands of dental floss. Oh, hang on. What am I doing? I've got the Chucks of Liberty. They're in here. Let's see. It's a lot of condoms. Let's see. Oh, here they are. And they are beat up. I've only got one lady left. So, pretty hard. All right. They didn't have to. So, okay, a good byproduct of, so the ladies, I really wish they were metal, but they weren't. They're like some composite material that are pretty tough if you hit it right on. But it's like an added bonus, like they break off in whatever you hit. It was creepy. They're all over the floor in there. It looked like teeth or something. Bill number 3. I took a hairdryer, compression socks, an umbrella. Actually, just used the shaft of the umbrella. And umbrellas, real quick, are literally, they're like they are to airports what buffalo are to Native Americans. You use every part of them. I mean, it's like, they've got a bin full of them, and it's like a small portable thing full of mechanical pieces that fit together well, right? Yeah, so, all right, took braided leather belts, took condoms, and that gave me Planned Parenthood. So, this is Planned Parenthood. And this is a sling bow. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term sling bow, but it's kind of like it's like a child between, it's like the mix between a slingshot and a crossbow, or a bow and arrow. So, this is small. Basically, I use the strands from the leather belt to keep everything together, and also to kind of latch on the condoms that I kind of braided together. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to tie lubricated condoms together. It's like herding cats and then trying to put condoms on them. YouTube, fiberglass umbrella shaft. So around back, you've got these condoms. And I used the strip of compression hosiery, and that's completely optional. But I wanted that on so the fiberglass shaft did not tear up the condoms. And I don't know if you guys have ever messed with fiberglass. It's terrible, man. Look at this stuff. It's gnarly. Do you know what that is? 1 billion splinters. Like, so you look at it long enough, and the stuff gets into your skin, and you can't get it out because it's invisible. Oh, yeah. So, okay, a quick note with that, like I used 3 condoms on each side. If I were like going to use this thing, I'd probably ramp that up maybe 4 or 5 times, right? And that could become a lot more powerful. I'd also use a thinner projectile, I think. So build number 5. We take a robot grabber creepy uncle thing. You mix that with magazines, the umbrella. This time we're using the spokes of the umbrella, Scotch tape, dental floss, double wall tumbler, a luggage handle, and what does that give you? A crest bearer, which is internet for crossbow. And in case you guys were wondering what the luggage handle's doing, yes, that would be your collapsible stock. Right. That's right. I didn't have to do that, but I was so excited. So basically what we've got is the ribs of the umbrella kind of through the tip of this thing. I'm using dental floss as the string, which waxed dental floss is great because it, like, once you roll it, it stays together. It's like you can make a rope out of it, a big waxy rope. That should be a band name. Take the rib. I'm using the rib of an umbrella as the projectile as well. Ideally, you'd want something heavier, something metal, but this worked just fine. And of course, tying it all together would be the Galaxy grabber and some magazines and Scotch tape. This is the trigger mechanism. It's essentially a piece of metal that I got out of the luggage, the handle of the luggage, that is just kind of bent. And as soon as you rotate that trigger, it releases the ring, which releases your arrow. So let's try it. Yeah. That's all right. So again, like if I were scaling this up, I would probably use 5 or 6 of those ribs, and it'd be a lot harder to load, and it'd shoot a lot harder as well. Build 6. I took magazines, Scotch tape, dental floss, the Constitution of the United States, which I love so much. This is a metal pencil sharpener. They had it mislabeled on the shelf. It was actually, they just said metal spike for hurting people. That's why I bought it. So when you put all that together, let's see, you end up with America. And that is, in fact, a spiked bat. Yeah. That's a lot heavier than it should be. So how did we build this? We took rolled up magazines. You reinforce that with a lot of Scotch tape and braided leather belts, and then a lot of dental floss, which works surprisingly well. And then you get this. I want to watch that again. You know, it's funny because that's the first thing I tried the first time I hit a coconut. I didn't know if it was going to work or not. I had my assumptions, obviously, so I was a little surprised at how effective that was. Build number 7, and actually this is probably the scariest one. I took Zippo lighters, disposable lighters, which yes they sell, and yes you can buy Zippos in an airport. A Parrot Air drone, or in my case I had a different remote control helicopter. It's all the same thing basically. Scotch tape, and that got me this. And this is a remote detonator. Yeah, I love America. So this is it getting cuddly with the transmitter. Basically, this is I'm using the flint wheel from a Zippo. I've got that hooked up directly to the brushless motor, and that is resting on the flint from a disposable lighter, and the spring is pushing it up in there. So basically what you get is like a really, really anxious lighter, and it works pretty well. the flint was basically gone at this point. Like there are usually a lot more sparks than that. But it goes pretty quickly, turns out, when you have it hooked up to a motor. A really important note from that last build was that I was using a receiver and transmitter that communicates line of sight through infrared light. So the one they sell at Brookstone, that you control with your smartphone over Wi-Fi. Well, it's ad hoc. You know, yeah, so what does this mean, right? So this means like you don't necessarily even have to be on the plane, so long as you can communicate with this thing. All right, so some additional things that I want to try, or I thought were too simple to really do a full build on. Using books as body armor, I did some research, and it looks like about 500 pages can stop a 9mm hollow point, which is, I really did think about it, so. But then I thought some more. Okay, so not everything has a funny name, you know? What would you call that? Oh, man. All right, so I think all of you, I'll take it. Drink. If you take the capacitors from disposable cameras, they also include transformers, so you could charge them up, and as soon as they touch anything metal or skin, they discharge rapidly, and that's actually a good amount of voltage. So what you can do is you can step that up with multiple capacitors and more batteries and more transformers, and it is something pretty nasty. It doesn't get like near actual taser range, but it probably annoys someone a lot. Take Axon, Zippo, and tape. You can make a tossable fireball. Those Zippo lighters, they pride themselves at being windproof. So figure that one out. I also wanted to make hydrogen gas through electrolysis. Specifically what I wanted to do with the hydrogen gas, I'm not going to tell you yet. That's for the next talk. Also use stomach acid, which is essentially hydrochloric acid, to synthesize more dangerous compounds. So hydrochloric acid is used in a lot of those things. I'm not a chemist, obviously, but also wanted to create a distiller out of the steam iron and reduce vodka down to food-grade alcohol, which is also known as what? Anyone know? Everclear. Y'all went to college. Would be fun. Also, I want to create a shiv that uses pressure from aerosol to inject air into your target's bloodstream. Why are you laughing? That's horrible. So I couldn't help but think of a few potential attack vectors that could be feasible given you've got some of this stuff. So number one, let's say an attacker books a first-class seat with view of the cockpit door. What? You came late. I'm sorry. Okay, so you go to the family restroom or you go to the nap room. It's like a room that's private that people leave you alone in for long periods of time. Al, everybody. So you would wait for the pilot in command or the co-pilot to exit the flight deck to use the restroom, because that happens. Upon their return, the attacker uses a ranged weapon from their seat to incapacitate them just after they open the cockpit door, creating just a few seconds of utter panic and chaos. And usually when this happens, and I've seen this happen a few times, and I totally didn't find the flight attendant training manual online. What they'll do is they'll kind of jury-rig a beverage cart like through the gangway, so you can't jump over a beverage cart that's hot. But anyways, with that gap of time, you could potentially get to the door. So the thought process is here is keep them from being able to shut the door, right? Because of the person in the way that is preoccupied with the arrow that's in their arm now. So number two, attacker buys a seat towards the front of the plane, stuffs a bag full of flammable materials like wood, coffee stirrers, paper, etc., along with one of those airplane mode detonators. They place that bag in an overhead compartment near the rear of the plane. And upon triggering it with your smartphone, it would catch fire, of course, and the crew would rush back to deal with that fire. And all the while, you would pull this out of your carry-on. And you would find the point on the airplane that's on the other side of that. Does anyone know what that is? It says cut here in case of emergency. It's like the soft spot on an airplane. So that's probably the one spot that doesn't have like really heavy supports and like it's intentionally built that way. So plausible attack number 3. Attacker stuffs a bag full of flammable materials along with an airplane mode detonator and places it somewhere else. Once that goes off, the oxygen masks deploy, and oxygen makes things burn really well. So the attacker cuts the oxygen line, places a secondary detonator in the overhead cavity from whence the masks came, and then goes somewhere else and lights that off. And have a safe flight home. And there's my contact information once again. We're doing good on time. Anyone have any questions?